Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. Today is the 7th of July 2021, and these are the stories that we will be discussing during the course of the show. We will begin with the sad news of the passing away of the subcontinent's icon, the legendary Dilip Kumar, aka Yusuf Khan, and he passed after a prolonged illness, of course, of old age today. As per the tweet of Mr. Faisal Farooqi, a family friend posted on Mr. Kumar's official Twitter, he has given details that he is no longer in this world. More in the following report. Oh, also our next story, before we go to, of course, the report, our next story is about Pakistan-China relationship and international politics after the US exit from Afghanistan. Prime Minister Imran Khan on Tuesday has said that Pakistan and China are iron brothers, and emphasizing, of course, that Pakistan has supported China's efforts to safeguard world peace, contribute to global development, and preserve international order. He was addressing the Communist Party of China and World Political Parties Summit. He said President Xi Jinping's vision of shared prosperity through the BRI had made a major impact on global sustainable development. Our third segment, ladies and gentlemen, is about the Indian role as far as destabilizing Afghanistan and also destabilizing Pakistan indirectly through Afghanistan is concerned. As per the reports that we are receiving, the Indians and especially the RAW that is present in Afghanistan is now exiting Afghanistan in different aircrafts, and this is what the reports are saying. We'll be talking about that. Then we'll be talking about Prime Minister Imran Khan, who has praised the NCOC after Pakistan has been ranked among the top countries for the way it handled COVID-19. And as you can see in the parallel window, Prime Minister Imran Khan has congratulated the NCOC in a tweet. And our final segment, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be about the 22nd Shahadat anniversary of Havaldar Lalak Jan Shaheed that was observed today in his native town Ghizar in Gilgit-Baltistan. He has been awarded, and he was awarded the country's Nishan-i-Haider for his devotion and courage that he showed in the Kargil war in the 1999. Now let's begin with our first story, and let's go to the sad news of the passing away of the legendary icon of the subcontinent, somebody that we've all grown up watching, Mr. Dilip Kumar. He passed away at the age of 98, of course, due to age-related factors. More in the following report.
Peshawar-born legendary actor Dilip Kumar, one of the biggest stars in the golden age of subcontinent cinema from the 1940s to the 1960s, passed away at the age of 98. President Dr. Arif Alvi, Prime Minister Imran Khan, and Information Minister Chaudhry Fawad Hussain expressed grief and sorrow on the sad demise of the legendary actor. Kumar was born Yusuf Khan on December 11, 1922 in Peshawar, then part of British-ruled India. His father was a fruit merchant who took his family to India's entertainment capital in the 1930s. Kumar did his first film Jawar Bhata in 1944, which tanked. His breakthrough role came in 1949 with Andaz, where he played a jilted lover who is caught in a triangle between the woman he loves and her husband. That role catapulted him to stardom and was the beginning of a decade where he made a career of playing tragic roles. Nicknamed the Tragedy King because of his brooding good looks, tousled hair, and deep voice, Kumar played the lead in some of the Indian film industry's most commercially successful films of the period. In 1998, the government of Pakistan conferred Kumar with Nishan-i-Imtiaz, the highest civilian award in Pakistan. He took up a more active role in Indian politics in 1998, and 2 years later, he became a lawmaker for the then opposition Congress Party. Kumar had been admitted to the intensive care unit on June 30 to address medical issues related to old age. He was earlier admitted to the same hospital on June 6 after experiencing breathlessness. Kumar is survived by his wife Saira Bano, a popular leading lady in Bollywood in the 1960s and 1970s. Shabbir Ahmed Wagra, PTV World.
Now, Dilip Kumar was known as the Tragedy King, not only because of his brooding good looks, tousled hair and deep voice, but also because of the fact that he played the title role in some of the biggest tragedies of the Indian cinema or the subcontinent cinema before the two countries became separated and, of course, independent. He worked in films that became icons and films that became legends, especially Mughal-e-Azam and of course people still remember him for his iconic roles, whether in this, whether in Devdas and so many other films. He will always be remembered not only as an icon of Indian cinema, of the subcontinent, but also as a star who wanted to bridge ties between India and Pakistan, and also talked about this. Now, of course, may his soul rest in eternal peace. Our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, is about the relationship that exists between Pakistan and China. We're going to talk about in the context of the address of our Prime Minister Imran Khan to the Communist Party of China and World Political Parties Summit, in which he praised the Chinese leadership and Pak-China friendship. More in the following report.
China has become an undaunted global power, and its rapid development has attracted worldwide attention in recent years. One major implication of various aspects of China's rise has been the resistance of Western Bloc and particularly the antagonism of United States. In recent years, China has increasingly leaned on Pakistan in South Asia and the Indian Ocean region to garner support for its development model and global ambitions. Premier Imran Khan on Tuesday, in his address to Communist Party of China, lent unwavering support to Chinese President Xi Jinping's vision of shared prosperity through the Belt and Road Initiative, while emphasizing that BRI had made a major impact on global sustainable development. China has intensified its economic engagement with Pakistan through its unprecedented project China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, leading to the diversification of ties to local stakeholders, notably in the infrastructure, education, media and energy sectors. Earlier, the Premier declared in an interview with English-language state broadcaster China Global Television Network that despite pressure, Pakistan would not change or downgrade its relationship with China because the relationship was deep. As US is forging regional alliance Quad comprising US, India, Japan, Australia and called on key Asian allies to unite against China, Pakistan categorically declared that it wouldn't take sides and would rather develop ties with all countries. Last month, Prime Minister Imran Khan and his Chinese counterpart Li Keqiang wrote letters to each other to mark the 70 years of Pakistan-China friendship and vowed to further strengthen its ties between the two countries. Sino-Pakistan relationship has been bolstered by persistent support of both countries for each other's core interests and issues of major concern.
Now, to talk about the exemplary friendship and brotherhood that is, of course, between these two countries, that is Pakistan and China, and how different initiatives, just like the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, are further bridging the ties between the two countries, and how both leadership have this resolve to further strengthen the relationship between the two countries. We've been joined by Yasir Masood, who's a foreign affairs expert. Yasir Masood, it's a pleasure to see you after such a long time in our studios, first of all. And secondly, Yasir, China-Pakistan, this is a friendship that has seen different eras, that has seen only highs and never any low. They are called Iron Brothers. Their friendship is known as higher than the highest of mountains, deeper than the deepest of oceans. And of course, China has always stood by Pakistan during the difficult times, during the stressful times that Pakistan has gone through. Now that our Prime Minister has also shown the same resolve towards China, how do you see the future of Pak-China friendship?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you for inviting me to express my views about China and Pakistan. As you just mentioned in your intro and also in your question, that China-Pakistan friendship goes beyond any metaphors, that goes beyond any adjectives, because we have seen the highs throughout since our diplomatic ties were started. And let me tell you why. Because Pakistan was the first country to acknowledge People's Republic of China. And after that, Pakistan has been consistently, providing assistance to China, whether it was defense ties, whether it was technology, and so on and so forth. And then over the period of time, China has developed multifolds, and this is beyond any shadow of a doubt that how China has achieved its progress and prosperity, and how much it has developed not only for other countries, neighboring countries, but also for its own people. I think that is the most important part. If I turn the clock back to 1978, when China, opened its doors to the outside world, and when Deng Xiaoping, introduced reforms, after that, the Chinese nation, they never looked back. And that goes, not only the government is responsible for its development, but also it's a collective effort on the part of Chinese people as well. First, then, they always thought about its government in a sense that they never looked back. They always, whatever government said, they implemented. People actually implemented on grounds the policies. Then another thing is, over the period of time, they have, continuously they, introduced further reforms. Like, for example, since 1991, more reforms were introduced. If we talk about 2000, they introduced Go Global policy. It means how, China is going to extend its foot in other countries for the purpose.
And BRI was part of
and BRI is basically the fulcrum, the main nucleus of the Go Global policy. As far as relations between both countries are concerned, I remember, because I have remained part of CPEC for quite a long time, since CPEC was initiated with Ministry of Planning. China invested at a time when Pakistan was going through a very critical phase. We had number of issues, like we were confronted with war on terrorism, our economy was, in hot waters. And then, no country on earth was investing in Pakistan because of, these various reasons. China invested at a time when we were going through a very fragile time, a very lean time of our history. This itself shows the confidence and the trust, not only of the Chinese government, but also of its people to invest in Pakistan.
All right, now Prime Minister Imran Khan, when he of course addressed this Communist Party of China and World Political Party Summit, he talked about the visionary leadership of China's transformation, and of course all the efforts of China's founding leader Mao Zedong. How do you see those efforts when you look back on China?
Well, when we see, right from, Mao Zedong, to whom it's like such an inspirational character for Chinese. I have been living in China, I have visited China so much. It is to the extent that, people actually worship, Mao Zedong. And why? Because he stood from the, dust of ashes, and achieved that pinnacle of success and glory for the people of China. And they have every right to, to idealize him and see him as a star. The leadership, in any country, the real purpose or the real service of a leadership is the vision, is to give a roadmap to whole nation.
When you talk of the roadmap, how important has been the vision of the Communist Party of China?
It's absolutely amazing, There is no other political party in the world which has, completed its anniversary 100 years. That itself is a testimony to the fact that how much they have achieved, how much prosperity they have given to the people, and how much confidence people have on this party. We talk about democracy, we talk about other, governing systems, but see how China has, brought reforms in socialism with the Chinese characteristics, and that has proved to be a recipe of success for China over the years. So their achievements are, manifold. Their achievements are so many.
When our Prime Minister talks about CPC's success that rests in the people-centric approach of its philosophy, how much do you agree with it?
Absolutely fine, because you see the nucleus of the reforms or the policies have always remained towards, it was people's, centric, because the main issue China had, we know that China was an agrarian economy for so many years, and still China is one of the best countries if we talk about agriculture. So, but the main concentration of the CPC was to how to lift, people from poverty. And we know that China is the only country under the sun which we have seen that in such a short span of time, it has lifted more than 700 million out of poverty bracket.
True.
And included them in middle class. And still, China has a target to eradicate poverty within few years, completely eradicate poverty from China within few
70
years.
years of Pakistan-China friendship is what we are celebrating today, the diplomatic relations between the two friendly countries, the brotherly countries. What can Pakistan learn from China? What can Pakistan emulate as the Chinese model?
Well, okay, I'll talk about Pakistan, but now, other countries also want to emulate the Chinese progress, the Chinese political system, the Chinese economic system in particular. Because as a matter of fact, I think China is the only country which has achieved this progress and prosperity through its economic system with the Chinese characteristics with such a short span of time. This is a great recipe of success, not only for Pakistan, but for other regional countries as well. What we need to learn is that what kind of reforms were introduced, and I believe that we are still lacking that. Our governments have never, focused on bringing reforms in the country. For example, we still need educational reforms. We still need political reforms. We still need constitutional reforms. We still need economic reforms. So I think reforms are very important. That is something we need to learn from China. And then we can emulate with Pakistani characteristics, because our governing system is altogether different, because we are a democracy. But we can emulate with Pakistani characteristics, and we can emulate and borrow what China has achieved. We can learn from them. Since we call ourselves iron brothers, I think Pakistan is the best country to learn from China.
True, true. When our Prime Minister Imran Khan also says, and I quote, that he talks about the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, and he said turning CPEC, the BRI's flagship project, into green CPEC has been a priority for Pakistan. How much do you feel it is achievable, and how long do you feel the turning of the CPEC into a green CPEC will happen for Pakistan?
Well, when we talk about CPEC, we think that it's only an economic project. That's not the case. Not only BRI, and also we see that it is basically, a nucleus of Belt and Road Initiative because of Gwadar's importance, because of regional connectivity. That's why, so much hype has given to CPEC, not only from Pakistan, but from Chinese side as well, because Pakistani nation has pinned high hopes from CPEC, and that's how, Chinese also see a one of its important component of Belt and Road Initiative. So we should go beyond an economic project. It's also can be considered as a green corridor. It can be considered as a media corridor. It can be considered as an education corridor. And it's not only about construction or building roads and dams. So the whole umbrella of CPEC is to bring prosperity to every nook and corner of Pakistan with inclusivity, because we call CPEC as an inclusive project.
This prosperity, this inclusivity has certain, of course, angles to it that we need to look at, especially in the regional scenario, with the US forces that are now exiting Afghanistan as we speak, and more or less have almost exited Afghanistan. On the 29th of last month, our Prime Minister said that it was very unfair of the Western powers, and he named US, to put pressure on countries like Pakistan to choose sides and downgrade the relationship with China. Why this pressure on Pakistan to change its relationship with China?
Pakistan is a sovereign country. Pakistan has its own, every right to be ally with someone and not to be ally with someone. It's every country's priority.
True.
And another thing is that if we look back, what we have achieved with the US partnership, we can divide into, with a lot of connotations, like, for example, we call it a transactional relationship or need-based relationship. And whenever Pakistan direly needed US, it always, stepped back from Pakistan. We started, we fought for them in jihad, we call them jihadis. US packed up and went back and left all these militants, unabated, and and then they became a threat for Pakistan and also for the region. Come 9/11 and see what happens. Pakistan had to pay the price.
Of course. It has paid the price through Pressler Amendment and so many other amendments. But coming back to Pak-China friendship, now our Prime Minister said, and I'll quote again because he said some wonderful things as far as Pak-China relationship is concerned. He said, in an era of complex and profound changes at the global and regional level, our all-weather strategic cooperative partnership remains a strong anchor for peace, progress and prosperity.
And
what
why-
do you see in the future?
Yes, and why China? Let me complete your previous question as well. Why China? Because China always stood with Pakistan in our dire times, in our difficult times.
True.
And then another thing is what I wanted to point out, that Pakistan has got gained nothing from the geopolitical and geostrategic policies over the years. Either Pakistan was forced to follow them, and either Pakistan didn't have any other choice. This is the first time that Pakistan has chosen the path of geo-economic policies.
True.
Because of these proxy wars, because of an ally with the US, Pakistan has lost, I'm not talking about the loss of economy, I'm not talking about the loss of the people, more than 70,000 people. But the biggest loss is that we did not have the time to focus on geo-economic policies. In meanwhile, other countries like Southeast Asian states, if you see, they've worked on their geo-economic policies, and that's how they progressed over time. Pakistan couldn't. That is the biggest loss Pakistan had. Now, how we are looking forward, Pakistan and China, since we are neighbors, our priorities are same in the region. And we are not talking about one country alone. China is a rising star in the region. Let's, for example, with CPAC,
Not only in the region, but in the globe.
in the global as well. So with the partnership of China, with all its manifestation, Pakistan is not going to lose anything. Pakistan is definitely is going to gain a lot with this partnership.
All right, thank you very much, Yasir. Yasir Masood, the foreign affairs expert, talking to us about the relationship between Pakistan and China, the all-weather, all-strategic relationship that has seen the best of times and the worst of times as well. But despite the different challenges, China has always stood by Pakistan, and this is what our Prime Minister Imran Khan has been praising over the times. And he has, of course, talked about the way the Chinese leadership has built its country through its policies, and how Pakistan needs to emulate those very policies, as well as Yasir Saab also said that other countries are also following suit as far as emulating those policies are concerned. Let's go towards our second segment, and that is, of course, the exit of the US forces from Afghanistan. As per the reports, most of the US forces have now exited Afghanistan, but there are also reports that Indian forces, Indian intelligence agencies are also exiting Afghanistan. Is it because the talks that were supposed to happen or did happen between the Afghan Taliban and India failed? Is it because of some other reasons? More in the following report.
As Afghanistan descends into uncertainty with the departure of foreign forces and the government in Kabul unable to stop the Afghan Taliban's onslaught, the question of Indian presence on Afghan soil becomes murky. India, which has had a significant footprint in Afghanistan since the fall of Taliban in 2001, followed by US invasion, cultivated strong ties with the Northern Alliance, TTP, and other miscreants to export insurgency in the region, with prime focus upon destabilization of Pakistan. After American President Joe Biden announced the deadline of withdrawal of troops, the internecine fighting escalated, with Taliban emerging as dominant tendency in this tumultuous cede and regain saga. Sensing these shifting sands, India, which was arch rival of Taliban, tried to lend olive branch to the group so as to perpetuate its spoiled role in Afghanistan. Back in June 2021, Indian publication The Hindu quoted a senior Qatari official as confirming that Indian officials made a quiet visit to Doha in order to meet the Taliban's political leadership based there. While commenting upon these dynamics, National Security Advisor Dr. Moeed Yusuf asserted that it is shameless of India to engage the Afghan Taliban in Qatar after having supported operations against the insurgent group for a long time. New Delhi had been astronomically uncomfortable when the Afghan peace process garnered momentum, and it attempted to derail the process by tapping its proxy assets to unleash violence. Through the last 2 decades, Delhi's so-called development assistance of around $3 billion to Afghanistan was aimed to secure self-centered strategic gains instead of well-being of Kabul. India had set up 24 consulates in Afghanistan, some close to the Pakistani border, and the hurried closure of its missions and evacuation of Indian nationals sparked concerns of failed Indian forays to Taliban. Thus, Pakistan's concern over India's destabilizing role in Afghanistan were never unwarranted.
Now, of course, this is a very complex relationship as far as the exit of US forces from Afghanistan is concerned. And of course, the way India has been trying to influence Afghanistan directly and indirectly, not only for gaining influence in the region, but also destabilizing Pakistan directly or indirectly. To talk more about that and the exit of India from Afghanistan, we've been joined by Dr. Moazzam Hashmi. He's an expert on Afghan affairs. Dr. Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Saab, how do you see or how do you perceive these rumors that have been escalating in the last few days, that now the Indian forces or the Indian intelligence agencies are also exiting Afghanistan? Is it A, because of the failure of the talks between the Taliban and RAW, or is it because of some other reason?
Dr. Saab, but yes, but sir, I would say that rumors are rumors, and if you look at the history in the past 40 years, RAW has been cooperating deeply against Mujahideen with the former Soviet Union when there was a war, Afghan war was going on, and it continued in the longer run. And you would see that, as you have mentioned the consulate, and one of the segments earlier we have also talked about the Indian consulate swarming around the Pakistani border and facilitating the militants against Pakistan. So it is also there, and some people have criticized that, this was an old talk. I don't think this is an old talk. It was like in 2008 or 2009, some of the consulates were reopened again, and two are very close, like in the Helmand and in Kandahar. They are there, and you have other consulates also operating again. Now, look at what are Indian interest in Afghanistan. Why Afghanistan is so important for India, and there comes in picture Pakistan, that India is paranoid about Pakistan. So let me give you a little, gist of it.
All right.
Now, India has economic, India has political, and India has strategic interest in Afghanistan. Now, when it used to be a bigger India before the independence of both the countries from the British Raj, you see that, the route to Central Asia was through Afghanistan. So India still is dreaming the same old thing. So access to Afghanistan, it's important for India, and it is, wants to make it possible through Afghanistan. This is one interest. Another interest is that, which is the most recent one. What is that recent interest is that, India is looking at the current situation in the prism where China and Pakistan are on one side, and in the bottom of this triangle is India, which is against both these two countries, right? Because Chinese interests are very obvious and there, and you have the BR Belt and Road project and everything else, pipelines, everything is over there. So India see both Pakistan and China's cooperation in Afghanistan as a threat. Is somebody has just mentioned that's a $3 billion investment in the development sector India has. Now connecting to this development investment of India, India has more than 4,000 paramilitary troops stationed in Afghanistan, and that is in the excuse for to provide security to the development projects, engineering projects which are going on in Afghanistan by India. Now, this paramilitary presence is over there, and this paramilitary presence is the one overt phase, and the covert phase is that we have seen that in the past, particularly in the past quarter century, this has been aiding anti-Pakistan elements across Pakistan's
And
southwestern
Pakistan has
borders,
given
right?
proof of those
Yeah.
anti-Pakistan elements in the past as well.
Yes, exactly. Pakistan has consistently been presenting the proofs in the at the international forums, various forums, and however, India lobby has turned out to be strong, and they were not given much attention at Pakistan deserved. This is one thing. Now, looking at this thing, when we lost talk like a couple of months ago, after a couple of days after that, you've seen that Biden administration came up with, withdrawal plan, and now September 11 is the final drawdown date, and the Taliban are going to present a formal peace agreement next month. And what is the peace agreement? Look at the history of that. In 2007, Taliban had presented their constitution. You know, it's a full constitution. I think I had published a story somewhere in one of the newspapers. So that constitution outlined the whole Taliban agenda, and whatever the talks had been
Do you
going
feel,
on
Dr.
since
Saab,
then,
that
I
this
don't
agenda,
see.
this constitution
Yes,
that you talk about is going to remain the same and is not going to be influenced by the talks that have been held between the US and the Afghan Taliban?
but sir, that's what I fear. That's what my humble submission is that. Now it's almost the same. This is what I call that, the rhetoric. And again, I see that whatever the international uh, organizations or the international platforms that are, engaged in the talks, supported by the US and Taliban, they seems to be going lock hands again as in the past. Now what is Taliban's main thing? They want to have their emirate. Now look at this comeback coming into the picture. Like India pressed the when Ajit Doval has visited India as soon as this drawdown date was finalized by the US after the change in administration in the White House. Doval Saab had been there, and it was a panic and hysteric visit. We talked about it. Okay, why is it? They thought that, now they won't have a space over there. They have already created a space over there. All India is fearing that China and Pakistan are going to resist it and not going to make it work the nefarious designs. Nobody is
But
bothered
Dr.
about
Saab,
the
don't you
Chinese.
feel that what the
Sir,
Indian fears are coming true?
how can you say that their fears are coming true? Let me submit that if India is worrying about $3 billion investment in Afghanistan,
Hmm.
China and Pakistan are not worried about that. Pakistan
Hmm.
has time and again reiterated that let India play a role in Afghanistan. We don't want to deny India's role. Let this role be, but let this role be
But there's
restricted to the
also an Indian
development
role in
sector.
destabilizing Pakistan and the region through Afghanistan,
Yeah,
isn't it?
this is yes, this is actually what it is. So strategic plan of India, number one, and why this economic, political, and strategic three-pronged agenda of India is the reason is that India has hegemonic designs in the region, and that's why they confronted China and they miserably failed about it, right?
Hmm.
Only resistance power is there in the region is Pakistan. So India wants to, grab Pakistan from the both sides. I
Hmm.
mean, I've recently been going through a piece by an Indian journalist. So they were saying that Pakistan is still trying to reassert its strategic depth. The point is that to that learned journalist, a dear colleague from India, I would say that we don't need this strategic depth. We are a nuclear state and we are capable of
All right,
taking the
Dr. Saab, what
payload load.
about Moeed
Yes.
Yusuf Saab and what he had to say as far as that meeting between the Indians and the Afghan Taliban leadership in Doha that happened, the news that was broken, and of course the Pakistani reaction that we have also talked about in our previous shows. How do you see that?
Uh, India, I would say that India's most reliance is on the soft power use because when they realize that they cannot, they are deterred on the conventional forces. They are more relying on the soft power division. Indian External Ministry has a separate exclusive division. I talked earlier that on the same designs of the State Department Public Affairs section, they
Hmm.
have a soft power division. The
Hmm.
soft power divisions, what they have done. They try to raise a propaganda and miserably failed. So when we are talking about Prime Minister Modi, Honorable Prime Minister Modi has hysteric propaganda of just going anti-Pakistan rather than anti-Muslim. They look
Hmm.
at different perspective. Otherwise, if they were anti-Muslim, they wouldn't having good relations with the Middle Eastern countries where their
Hmm.
major economic interest lies, right? So the point is that Modi Saab is trying the same soft power image. They are trying to pursue through the various platforms where the talks are going on. Of course, supported by the USA, they are not acting alone in that.
True.
However, my fear is that with this going on, and if the West, led by the US, has decided to take back seats, then you know what is there. You are going to repeat the same history when Soviet Union for Soviet forces withdrew. So what I am seeing is that, is this United States is going to face the same socio-psychological dilemma again, because they have left something in. This is what they are doing it. So
And
up,
how much do you
in the
feel Indian involvement is going to remain as far as the socio-psychological development in the region post evacuation of the US and NATO troops is concerned? How much do you feel the Indian role is going to be?
But sir, as I said, India's most emphasis is on soft power use, and this is what their strategy tool is. And in the current, era of hybrid warfare, Modi Saab has used it in to win his tenures of two elections, to win the two tenures in India. It's based on this media warfare. Let me tell you one thing. In his first stint, when they had the election, that was 2014, I believe, there were 3 million election related tweets in India. Can you imagine that? Look at the volume. So they are mobilizing the similar kind of a volumes in their external policy, particularly with Afghanistan and
Will
Pakistan.
they achieve
China,
it this time? Because the Afghan Taliban know exactly the reasoning behind India using its soft power in Afghanistan is concerned, and
yes.
what are the different strategies that India also has behind
Yes.
it?
But sir, that's a very fine question and very pertinent one. Thank you for asking that. Now, about this thing, India is countering two things. Number one, India fears that Pakistan and China are together and going to gain more grounds in all sectors related to particularly pipelines, which where India see deprived, the CPAP and the other pipeline projects.
All
Now
right.
they are going to go further on that, and how is that? So India is trying its best to counter this thing through, creating confusion on the international platform, right? So, this is what the major thing is going on with India, and not only that, I think when they started reopening their consulate in 2008 and onward in Afghanistan, so I don't think there is any reduction in the forces or the protection forces, whatever they call them, paratroopers over there. So they that is not, paramilitary forces are there, and they are having another agenda, and we have been giving proof in this regard that what India actually is trying to do. We are sitting relaxed. We are focusing on our job. We have even fenced the Pakistan-Afghans border, which is a great achievement. Look how we are trying to fix things. But India is keeping its presence, and I would say that its presence and its soft power strategy or warfare is going to escalate rather than de-escalate. I don't see
All
any
right.
sign of it.
All right. Well, only time will tell, to be very frank, Dr. Moazzam Hashmi, as to
Yes,
how
yes,
India is going to move forward once the US and NATO forces have completely exited. Because, of course, as far as the reports go, the talks between the Taliban and the Indian agencies haven't been that fruitful. And, of course, we're also hearing reports of hurried Indian exit from Afghanistan as we speak. Not once, but in the last few days, there have been a few exits of the Indian agencies from Afghanistan. Let's see how all of this bodes forward, because only time will tell how that affects the regional situation, the relationship between Afghanistan and India, and of course the destabilization efforts that India has been perpetrating towards Pakistan through Afghanistan. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab, to have joined us.
welcome.
And now
Welcome.
let's go to our next segment, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns Prime Minister Imran Khan, who has praised the NCOC after our country has been ranked among the top countries for handling COVID-19. Now, the Economist's Normalcy Index has tracked the progress of 50 countries' return to pre-pandemic life on the basis of 8 indicators that have been classified into 3 categories. Now, each country scored out of 100 the benchmark score for the pre-pandemic level of activity on the index, where Pakistan's current score is 84.4. This tracker is, of course, updated every week. At present, the top ranked country is Hong Kong with a score of 96.3, which is followed by New Zealand, 87.8. Pakistan is now ranked third. And of course, this is huge for Pakistan, a country that despite the challenges that it had during the COVID-19 times were very effectively handled by the current government and the policies of Mr. Imran Khan and the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, which led to Pakistan coming out of this crisis in a very effective manner. Is Pakistan now coming back to the pre-pandemic times? Only time will tell. Although the number of cases have slightly increased in the last few days, if we continue following the SOPs and get ourselves vaccinated and still follow the SOPs as we should despite getting vaccinated, we might come to the pre-pandemic life. We wish Pakistan all the very best. Coming to our last segment of the day, today is also the 22nd martyrdom anniversary of Shaheed Havaldar Lalak Jan. It is being observed today. He has been the recipient of Pakistan's highest award, the Nishan-i-Haider. More in the following report.
In May 1999, while the enemy was preparing for a major offensive, Havaldar Lalak Jan was serving in the company headquarters. He volunteered to fight on the front line. Jan valiantly defended his post with a handful of men and repulsed numerous Indian attacks, leaving behind scores of dead bodies. On 7th July, the enemy constantly engaged his post for the entire day with unprecedented firework. It was followed by a three-pronged night attack. Despite being critically injured, he refused to be evacuated and successfully repulsed the attack, inflicting heavy losses on the enemy. Later, Havaldar Jan succumbed to injuries and embraced Shahadat while defending the motherland.
Now, he has been, as have been so many other Shuhada, a symbol of bravery, devotion and courage. We salute you, sir. Pakistan salutes you. With that, we come to an end of today's Newsroom. We'll see you, inshallah, tomorrow with new segments and stories. Stay safe, follow the SOPs, get yourselves vaccinated. Allah Hafiz.